This is Electric Universe, and today I'm going to narrate The Great Comet Venus by David Talbott, 1997, section titled Quetzalcoatl and the Fears of Kings. The apprehension of Moctezuma cannot be separated from a sweeping mythical tradition personified in Mexico by the life and death of Quetzalcoatl, the cultural hero. From him it began, from Quetzalcoatl it flowed out. All art and knowledge, the Aztecs sang. Quetzalcoatl was the sun, but the mythical and ritual sources remind us that this does not mean the light we call sun today. The most revered figure of Mexican myth, Quetzalcoatl ruled for a time, then disembarked for other realms. As the great teacher, the exemplary ruler, his life and death define the duties, expectations, and fears of kings. Which is to say, Moctezuma's fear, the fear of the neighboring king of Texcoco, and the fear of every emperor before him must be understood in terms of a cosmic crisis at the center of the myth. When Quetzalcoatl died or departed, a world cycle ended catastrophically. But of course, it was not just the myth of Quetzalcoatl that reminded rulers of their tenuous hold on the kingdom and on life itself. Such is the message of universal myth, for two principles emerge from a comparative study. As above, so below. The theme couldn't be more clearly stated throughout Mesoamerica. The terrestrial king lives in the shadow of the celestial king, the great example for later kings. But if the references of kingship are originally celestial, that does not mean that they will be found in the present sky. Thus, the unsettling implication for the specialists. If the forms and episodes of myth relate to spectacular former occurrences, then no mainstream approach will ever reach the central motives of myth. As before, so again. This is the key to all mythically rooted fear. What happened before will happen in the future. Countless variations on the underlying themes cannot obscure the expectation of the eternal return. Quite apart from their interesting mathematics, for example, the mythical context of the Mesoamerican calendar system was the periodic cataclysm. But that deeply embedded fear reached far beyond the calendar and into every expression of culture. The collective goal was to reckon with divine caprice, to employ every device available to bargain for a new lease on life, to avoid the recurring disaster. Though Velikovsky did not give substantial attention to the myth of Quetzalcoatl, he did observe the relationship to Venus and the catastrophic nature of the god's death and transformation, to which Bob Forrest replied with considerable skepticism, claiming that in the life and death of Quetzalcoatl there is certainly no reference to the planets in a Velikovskyan sense. True, Quetzalcoatl was symbolically related to the morning star, but this is a far cry from being told that the planet Venus brought about the end of the world with a cosmic hurricane. Quetzalcoatl is here a great teacher rather than a rampant supercomet. Notice the critic's reasoning. If Quetzalcoatl was a great teacher, his story could not involve an account of Velikovsky's comet. It seems that Forrest could not imagine a celestial form filling the role of exemplary model in the myths, nor could he imagine the death of this charismatic personality in terms of a sweeping natural catastrophe. But this is precisely where comparative study becomes so essential. Had he known that virtually all of the founding kings of myth suffered some variation on the fate of Quetzalcoatl, he might have noticed as well a recurring corollary. The god-king's heart-soul, the planet Venus, departs to join in a celestial conflagration. And where astronomical data is available, the skywatchers insist in stunning unanimity that the majestic heart-soul emerged as the planet Venus. On such a sweeping claim as this, I can only ask the reader's indulgence as the evidence unfolds in this series. Forrest's conclusion ! Only emphasizes the gap that separates conventional students of myth from the world of the earliest skywatchers. Coherent motives disappear, and the primary cultural symbols dissolve into sand under the specialist's microscope. Then it becomes possible to believe that a host of different and unrelated experiences came together as the doomsday fear, or that the pervasive role of sacrifice arose from a different experience than the meticulous observations of Venus, or that the memory of great wars in the sky was at best a rationalization for the relentless Mesoamerican wars of conquest. This is where Velikovsky's comet Venus will help to rescue ancient myth and ritual from a theoretical vacuum. It will do so by providing a coherent reference, sufficient to substantiate an entirely new approach to the subject matter. The comet Venus enters ancient myth as the celestial agent of disaster, and its emergence is synonymous with the death of the Creator King. The great god's heart soul departs from him, or is removed violently, or is flung into the ensuing Holocaust, to become a comet-like flaming star, then presides over the re-establishment of celestial order, the dawn of a new world age. To see Velikovsky's comet in its globally defined and catastrophic role is to realize something overlooked by the specialists, that a planetary history we have forgotten will do more to explain the pervasive fears of ancient cultures than all the more fashionable speculations combined. How are we to understand the unending ritual wars and sacrifices in which rulers remembered, honored, and satisfied the gods, hoping to hold the heavens together? How do we interpret the complex calendars of world ages, anticipating a recurring doomsday with every turn of the wheel? Or the endless preoccupation with catastrophic omens and portents? For centuries, the priest astronomers reacted with terror to any natural phenomenon that might suggest the world to return to chaos. In what experience did this fear arise? Surely one way of illuminating the symbols of celestial terror is to consider the possibility of terrifying events. To make this point completely clear, it will be useful to look at a few of the Mesoamerican symbols of the doomsday fear, asking the reader at each stage whether we are considering separate symbols or the expressions of a more coherent, highly traumatic experience.